My name is Rebecca Miller. I'm 40 years old now, but the night that split my life in half happened when I was just 17. I can still see it. The yellow glow of the kitchen light, the slam of the door, and the sound of my father's voice, sharp enough to cut me in two. Get out. You're not my daughter anymore. I remember standing there, trembling, my backpack slung over one shoulder. My hands kept rubbing against the zipper like maybe I could disappear if I just kept moving. I had just told them I was pregnant. My mom's face turned pale like she'd seen a ghost. My dad's went red, burning with rage, and me. I was just a scared high school junior who thought maybe, just maybe, my parents would still love me. Instead, my mom whispered, "You've humiliated us," and my dad? He didn't whisper. He shouted. He shoved me toward the door, like I was garbage he couldn't wait to throw out. And just like that, I wasn't their daughter anymore. If you're watching this right now, tell me, have you ever felt abandoned by the very people who were supposed to protect you? Drop where you're from in the comments, hit like, and subscribe if you want to hear how far betrayal can push a person. Because trust me, this story doesn't end with me begging for their forgiveness. No. This story ends 22 years later, with them on their knees, begging me. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. That night, when the cold air hit my face as the door slammed behind me, I thought my life was over. I had no money, no car, just a secret inside me that would grow bigger every day. I wandered down the empty street, clutching my stomach, whispering, "What am I going to do?" The houses all had warm, glowing windows, families laughing, the smell of dinners drifting through the air, and there I was alone, unloved, discarded like trash. It's funny how betrayal doesn't just break you, it brands you. That night carved a mark on me so deep, it stayed with me for decades. I thought my parents had ruined me, but what they really did was awaken something inside me I didn't know I had. And that strength, that fury, that hunger for justice, it would come back decades later, when they least expected it, because 22 years after that night, those same parents who threw me out showed up again, not with apologies, not with love, but with lawsuits, and that's when the real fight began. But before I tell you how I turned the tables on them in court, you need to know how a scared 17-year-old girl survived after being kicked out into the cold. The night my parents kicked me out, I didn't even make it to my best friend's house. I was too ashamed, too broken. I couldn't face anyone who knew me as the straightest student, the choir girl, the one who always seemed to have it together. Instead, I walked, for hours, past the gas station, past the library that was dark and shuttered, past the church where I used to sing Christmas hymns with my mother, sitting proudly in the front pew. Now, that memory stung like a knife in my chest. By midnight, I ended up in a 24-hour diner, the kind with cracked red leather booths and a waitress who called everyone honey. I ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, a small bowl of chili, and tried not to cry, but she noticed. They always notice. "You alright, sweetheart?" she asked, pouring me more water than I needed. I wanted to lie. I wanted to say, "Yeah, just a long night," but the truth spilled out of me, messy and raw. My parents kicked me out. I'm pregnant. I don't have anywhere to go. The waitress froze for a second, her eyes softening. Then she sighed. "Sit tight. Finish your chili. I'll figure something out." That woman's name was Donna, and to this day, I think angels come in the strangest forms. She didn't judge me. She didn't shame me. She wrote down the number of a women's shelter on a napkin and told me to call first thing in the morning. And then she paid for my chili, out of her own pocket. That tiny act of kindness kept me alive. But the shelter, that was a different story. Crowded, noisy, women with bruises under their sunglasses, babies crying through the night, the air thick with fear and exhaustion. I learned quick, nobody was coming to save me. Not my parents, not the baby's father. He vanished the second I told him. It was me. Just me. So I got a job bussing tables at that same diner where Donna worked. Every night I smelled like French fries and bleach, my feet aching so bad I could hardly walk home. But I worked, and I saved. And with every dollar, every long night, every moment, I held my stomach and whispered promises to the tiny life inside me. I swore one thing: I would build a life so strong, so unshakable, that no one could ever throw me away again. It wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't be fast. But betrayal had lit a fire in me, and that fire was just getting started. What I didn't know back then was that my parents weren't done haunting me. Their betrayal would follow me into adulthood, and explode in ways I never saw coming. I had my daughter, Emily, in the spring of my senior year. While my classmates were buying prom dresses, I was buying diapers with tips from the diner. Labor was brutal. No epidural, no family waiting outside. Just me and a nurse who held my hand when I screamed. And when I finally heard Emily's cry, it was like every piece of me that had been broken suddenly glued itself back together. She was tiny, red-faced, furious at the world. And I thought, good, she's going to need that fire. I wanted to give her everything I never had, but wanting doesn't pay bills. So I worked. I worked 2 jobs at one point, bussing tables by night, cleaning houses by day. I carried Emily in a second-hand stroller through rain, snow, and blazing summer heat. Dropping her off at daycare I could barely afford. I remember one night, bone-tired, counting crumpled dollar bills on my kitchen table. Emily was asleep in her crib, and I whispered, "One day, baby girl, one day we'll have more than this." And slowly, painfully, we did. By 25, I had saved enough to put myself through community college. I studied business while Emily colored beside me at the library. By 30, I'd scraped together a down payment on a tiny house. By 35, I owned not one, but 3 successful cafes across our city, from broke teen mom to business owner. Every time I unlocked the door to one of my shops, I thought, I did this. We did this. Emily grew into a whip-smart, stubborn young woman just like me. I used to tell her, we don't quit, remember? Millers don't quit. But here's the bitter truth. Even as I built a life worth being proud of, I never heard a word from my parents. Not a call, not a letter, not even a Christmas card. They erased me. And for years, I told myself I didn't care. But late at night, when the house was quiet, I would wonder if they ever thought of me, if they regretted it. Turns out, they did think of me. Not out of love, not out of guilt, but out of greed. Because 22 years later, when Emily was grown and I had everything I'd worked for, my parents suddenly came knocking. And they weren't asking for forgiveness, they were asking for money. And when I refused, they did something so shocking, so cruel. It nearly destroyed everything I had built. It was a Sunday afternoon, the kind where the air smells like cut grass and grilled burgers. When I heard it, a knock on my front door, I wiped flour off my hands. I'd been baking with Emily, who was home from college for the weekend, and opened it. And there they were. My parents, older, grayer, but unmistakably them. My mom clutching her purse like it was a lifeline, my dad standing stiff as ever, jaw tight. For a second, I froze. It was like seeing ghosts. My heart hammered in my chest. "Rebecca," my mom said softly. Like no time had passed. Like she hadn't thrown me into the cold when I was 17 and pregnant. Emily peeked around the corner. "Mom, who is it?" I snapped back to reality. "Nobody. Go upstairs." But my parents didn't budge. My dad cleared his throat. "We heard you've done well for yourself. Business owner, comfortable house, college-educated daughter." His voice dripped with a bitter edge, like my success was a personal insult. I narrowed my eyes. "What do you want?" They exchanged a glance. My mom shifted nervously before blurting out, We need help. Financial help." I almost laughed. After 22 years of silence, abandonment, shame, they came back because they wanted money. "No," I said firmly. "You made your choice. You don't get to walk back into my life when it's convenient." But my father wasn't done. His eyes hardened. "If you won't help us willingly, then maybe the courts will make you." I blinked, not understanding at first. "What are you talking about?" He leaned forward, lowering his voice like a threat. "You owe us, for raising you, for the years before you disgraced this family. And we'll sue if we have to." "Sue me?" "My own parents." The words slammed into me harder than when they'd first kicked me out. Emily came halfway down the stairs, eyes wide. "Mom, what's going on?" I shut the door in their faces before she could hear more. My hands were shaking so bad I had to lean against the wall. I thought the nightmare was over. I thought I'd escaped them. But I was wrong. They weren't just back. They were coming for everything I had. And when the court papers arrived, I realized my parents weren't bluffing. They were ready to destroy me to get what they wanted. The envelope came on a Tuesday morning, thick, heavy, with my name typed in bold letters across the front. When I opened it, my hands went numb. Summons. My parents had filed a lawsuit. They were claiming parental reimbursement, a legal loophole in my state that allowed parents to sue adult children for financial support if they could prove past contributions and current need. I couldn't believe it. The same people who abandoned me at 17, who never gave me a dime, who never met their own granddaughter until a week ago, were now trying to drain everything I had worked for. Emily was in the kitchen when she saw the papers on the counter. "What is this?" I didn't want her involved. She was still young, still building her own life. But when she read the words, her face flushed with anger. "They can't do this. They kicked you out. They left you with nothing." I sank into a chair. "I know. But the law doesn't care about the truth sometimes. They'll twist it. They'll lie. And if they win..." My chest tightened. I imagined losing the cafes, losing the house, losing everything I had fought for over 2 decades. The betrayal cut deeper this time. When they kicked me out, I was a scared teenager, but now I was a woman who had clawed her way out of hell. only to have the very people who pushed me there trying to drag me back down. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every moment: my mom's pale face, my dad's booming voice, the way the door had slammed shut 22 years ago. And now, the echo of that knock on my door, demanding money. I whispered into the dark, "You won't win. Not this time, because here's the thing about betrayal: it either breaks you or builds you." And I wasn't that trembling 17-year-old anymore. I had power. I had resources. And I had the truth, but the road ahead was terrifying. Court dates, lawyers, the risk of losing everything. I knew I had to fight. And this time, I wasn't just fighting for me. I was fighting for Emily, for the life we had built. For every single night I stayed awake working while she slept peacefully in her crib. For every dollar, every tear, every drop of sweat. If my parents wanted war, then war was exactly what they were going to get. But before I could step into that courtroom, I had to uncover the ugly secrets my parents were hiding, secrets that would change the entire case. I hired a lawyer the very next day. Her name was Sandra Lopez, sharp as a razor and not afraid to cut. She read through the papers, adjusted her glasses, and said flatly, "This isn't about need. This is about greed. They think you'll settle to avoid embarrassment." Embarrassment. That word stung. For years, my parents had used it like a weapon. "You've humiliated us," my mom had said when she threw me out. And now, here they were again, trying to humiliate me in front of a judge. But Sandra wasn't rattled. "We fight back," she said. "But to win, we need evidence. Proof they abandoned you. Proof they never supported you after 17. The burden will fall on us." So I started digging. Old journals, daycare receipts, pay stubs from the diner with my name barely legible in faded ink. I built a paper trail of survival, every scrap of evidence showing I had raised Emily on my own, without a dime from them. And then, I found something else. An old letter, stuffed in a showbox. A letter my mom had written when I was 18, begging the church we attended to pray for the shameful path my daughter has chosen. She wrote that I was a disgrace, that she wanted nothing to do with me or my child. I held that paper in my trembling hands, fury coursing through me. They hadn't just abandoned me, they had erased me, publicly condemned me, made sure I had no place to turn. When I showed it to Sandra, her eyes lit up. This is gold. It proves intent. They didn't support you, they rejected you." Exactly the opposite of what they're claiming, but digging into the past had a cost. Memories I thought I'd buried came flooding back: cold nights in the shelter, Emily's cries echoing off the thin walls, the ache of loneliness that never fully left. I realized something chilling. This lawsuit wasn't just about money. It was about control. My parents hadn't changed. They didn't want reconciliation. They wanted power over me again. But what they didn't know, the scared girl they threw out, she had grown into a woman who wasn't afraid to burn everything down if it meant protecting her daughter. And when I looked at Emily, strong, independent, furious on my behalf, I knew one thing for certain: this time, they would be the ones humiliated. But just when I thought I had enough to crush their case, my parents pulled a dirty trick in court that nearly turned everything upside down. The courthouse smelled like old paper and cold coffee. I sat at the defense table, hands folded tight in my lap, while my parents sat across the aisle with their lawyer. I hadn't seen them up close like this in decades. My mom kept her eyes down, but my dad, oh, he stared straight at me, smug, like he already believed he'd won. When the judge entered, we all rose. My heart thudded in my chest. This wasn't just about money anymore, this was about my dignity, my story, my survival. Their lawyer started first. "Your Honor," he said, voice smooth as silk, "my clients devoted years of their lives to raising their daughter, Rebecca Miller. They provided her with food, shelter, clothing, and education, until she abandoned the family to pursue reckless choices. Now, in their later years, they face financial hardship. All they ask is for reasonable support from the daughter they sacrificed so much for." Sacrificed. The word nearly made me choke. But then, they pulled out photos. Old family pictures from before the storm. Me as a child at Christmas, smiling with a new bike. Me in the front yard, my mom's arm draped around me. They painted a picture of loving, supportive parents. Parents who gave everything until I, the ungrateful daughter, turned my back, and for a split second, I could feel the judge studying me, wondering if that story was true. That's when rage burned through me, because I knew the truth, and I wasn't about to let them rewrite history. When it was our turn, Sandra stood tall. "Your Honor, what my client's parents failed to mention is that when she was 17 and pregnant, they abandoned her completely. Not only did they refuse to support her, they publicly shamed her, Leaving her with nothing but the clothes on her back, she handed over the letter my mom had written to the church. The judge read it silently, eyebrows furrowed. And for the first time, I saw a flicker of doubt cross my father's face. But they weren't finished with their tricks. Because right after, their lawyer leaned in and said, "We also have witnesses who will testify to Rebecca's so-called irresponsibility as a teen. We'll prove she chose to leave, not that she was forced out." My stomach dropped. Who could they possibly convince to testify against me? The answer would knock the wind out of me, because when I saw their first witness walk into the courtroom, I felt betrayal all over again, this time from someone I never expected. When the courtroom doors opened and the witness walked in, my breath caught in my throat. It was Carla, my former best friend from high school. The same girl who used to sneak out with me for milkshakes after football games. The one who swore she'd always be my sister no matter what. The one I had cried to the night I found out I was pregnant. And there she was walking to the witness stand to testify against me. My parents' lawyer smiled like a snake. "Miss Carla Jennings, did Rebecca voluntarily leave her parents' home when she was 17? Carla cleared her throat. "Yes, she told me she didn't want to live by their rules anymore. She said she was moving out to live her own life." I gripped the edge of the table so hard my knuckles turned white. It was a lie, a twisted half-truth. I did tell Carla once that I dreamed of leaving back when I thought independence meant college and freedom, not homelessness and pregnancy. Now they were twisting my words into a weapon. Sandra rose quickly. "Ms. Jennings, isn't it true that Rebecca confided in you the night her parents kicked her out?" Carla hesitated. Her eyes flicked toward my father, then back at me. "She said they were angry, but she wanted to go." My stomach turned. Carla was protecting herself, or maybe protecting them. But either way, her words stabbed me like a knife. When cross-examination ended, Carla avoided my eyes as she stepped down, and I sat there, trembling, asking myself how many more knives were coming. During the recess, Emily squeezed my hand. "Mom, don't let her get to you. I know the truth. You know the truth. And soon, so will the judge." Her words steadied me, because the truth had a way of surfacing, no matter how many lies people piled on top of it. Still, I couldn't shake the betrayal. First my parents, now my best friend. How many more people from my past would be dragged in to twist the knife deeper? But as Sandra reminded me, sometimes, their witnesses are a gift. The more desperate they get, the sloppier they'll become. And she was right, because the next witness they brought forward didn't just backfire. They accidentally handed me the weapon I needed to win. The next person my parents put on the stand revealed a secret so explosive, it shifted the entire case in my favor. The bailiff called the next witness, and when she walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. It was Mrs. Green, my old neighbor from across the street, the one who used to hand me cookies after school when I was little. My parents looked smug, certain she would back up their story. Their lawyer asked smoothly, "Mrs. Green, can you confirm that Rebecca's parents provided her a stable and supportive home until she chose to leave?" Mrs. Green adjusted her glasses, glancing between me and my parents. Then she leaned forward and said, clear as day, "No, that's not true." The courtroom went silent. My parents' lawyer blinked. "Excuse me." Mrs. Green folded her hands. "I remember that night. I saw Rebecca standing outside on the curb with a backpack. I saw her father slam the door in her face. She was crying, and I asked if she wanted to come inside. But she said she couldn't. Her parents had told her never to come back." My chest tightened. All the years I'd carried that memory alone, and here was someone finally validating it. The lawyer scrambled. "But surely, you can't know what happened inside the house." "I know what I saw," she interrupted firmly. "And I know Rebecca raised that baby on her own. I watched her walk Emily to daycare every morning while she went to work. I watched her struggle. I even slipped her groceries once or twice because I knew she didn't have enough. Those parents did nothing for her." The judge's face was unreadable, but I saw the impact. The lie my parents had built their entire case on was crumbling. My father's jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. My mother shifted in her chair, her eyes shiny with panic. Sandra whispered beside me, "This is it. This is the crack in their armor we needed." I felt a surge of strength. For the first time since this nightmare began, I wasn't just defending myself, I was watching the truth finally come alive in front of everyone. But Mrs. Green wasn't finished. She added one last blow. "And if I may, Your Honor, I always thought it was shameful, parents abandoning their own daughter when she needed them most. And now to see them asking for money." She shook her head. "It's disgraceful." The words hung heavy in the courtroom. And for the first time, it wasn't me who looked humiliated. But just as victory felt close, my parents made one final desperate move, one that forced me to bring out my most powerful piece of evidence. By the third day of trial, I could see it in their faces. My parents were slipping. Their lawyer was rattled, their story full of holes. And witnesses like Mrs. Green had shredded their credibility. But desperate people do desperate things. Their lawyer stood and announced dramatically, "Your Honor, we have new evidence. Evidence that shows Rebecca has always exaggerated her struggles." I braced myself. He pulled out a stack of glossy photographs. Pictures of me standing in front of my cafes, smiling at ribbon cuttings. Pictures of me at charity galas, shaking hands with city leaders. Pictures of my house, my car, my life now. "Look at her," he said. "This is not the portrait of a woman who suffered. This is the portrait of someone thriving thanks to the foundation her parents provided." My parents actually smirked, like they'd just delivered a killing blow. For a moment, I could feel the weight of the room tilt. The judge studying me, the jury murmuring, the whispers in the gallery. Maybe she is just ungrateful. Maybe she owes them something. But that's when Sandra gave me the nod. It was time. I stood up, my legs steady as stone. "Your Honor, if they want to drag my present into this, then I'll gladly show it. Because every single thing I own, every cafe, every dollar in my bank account came from me, not them. And I can prove it." I handed Sandra a binder we'd prepared: bank statements, business loans, tax filings. Every receipt, every signature, every late-night hustle, every dime accounted for. Not a cent came from my parents. Then I pulled out the letter, the one my mother had written to the church when I was 18. I walked it to the judge myself. My hands didn't even shake. "Read it," I said softly. The courtroom went dead silent as the judge scanned the words. The letter dripped with venom, calling me a disgrace, a sinner, a daughter they no longer claimed. When the judge finally looked up, the silence was deafening. And in that silence, I turned toward my parents. "You threw me away. And now you think you can rewrite history because I survived without you? No, I don't owe you a single thing. If anything, you owe me." My father's face went purple. My mother's lips trembled, tears threatening to spill, and in that moment, I realized something powerful. I wasn't the abandoned girl on the curb anymore. I was the woman standing tall in a courtroom, holding them accountable. But the judge's ruling would decide everything, and when it finally came down, the outcome shocked the entire room. The courtroom was so quiet you could hear the clock ticking on the wall. My parents sat stiffly, their lawyer whispering frantically in their ears. Sandra rested her hand on mine, steady, calm. Then the judge cleared his throat. "I've reviewed all the evidence. I've considered the testimony. And the question before this court is simple. Do these parents have any legal claim to financial support from their daughter?" I held my breath. The judge continued. "What I see is not parents who sacrificed for a child, but parents who abandoned her at her most vulnerable moment. I see no financial contributions past the age of 17. I see a letter explicitly disowning her. And I see overwhelming proof that the life Ms. Miller has built, she built alone." My father's face drained of color. My mother shook her head, whispering, "No, no." Under her breath, the judge's voice was firm. "This court finds the plaintiff's claims not only without merit, but malicious in nature. Therefore, the case is dismissed in full. Furthermore, the court orders the plaintiffs to pay all legal fees incurred by the defendant." I gasped. Not only had I won, they had to pay me. For a moment, I just sat there stunned. Then I felt Emily squeeze my shoulder. Her whisper fierce, "You did it, Mom. You crushed them." The bailiff called order as my father erupted, pounding the table, shouting that the system was corrupt. My mother sobbed into her hands, but none of it mattered. The chains they had tried to wrap around me were broken. As I walked out of that courtroom, the sun hit my face, and for the first time in years, I felt truly free. I had beaten them, not just in court but in life. But the real victory wasn't the judge's ruling, it was the lesson I carried forward. And the message I want every person watching this to hear. When I drove home from court that day, Emily beside me in the passenger seat, I kept glancing at her. She was smiling, proud, strong, and I realized she was the real victory. My parents had tried to destroy me when I was 17. They had kicked me out, turned their backs, erased me. But in the ashes of that betrayal, I raised a daughter who became my reason, my fire, my strength. I thought about every night I cried myself to sleep in that shelter, every shift I worked with aching feet, every class I took with Emily coloring quietly beside me. Those weren't just struggles, they were bricks. And brick by brick, I built a life no one could take from me. And in the end, the very people who had abandoned me came crawling back, desperate and greedy. That's karma. That's justice. But here's the truth that matters most. Revenge isn't about destroying the people who hurt you. It's about refusing to let them destroy you. When the judge dismissed their case, I didn't just win legally, I won spiritually. I proved to myself that betrayal doesn't define you. How you rise from it does. To anyone listening who's been abandoned, betrayed, or underestimated, don't let their cruelty become your cage. Use it as fuel. Build something so strong they can never tear it down. And to my parents, though they'll never admit it, I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I refuse to carry your poison any longer. If you're watching this, I want to know, what would you have done if your own parents betrayed you like mine did? Would you have fought back in court or walked away? Tell me in the comments. And if my story touched you, hit like and subscribe, because there are so many more stories of survival and strength I want to share with you. Because in the end, this isn't just my story. It's proof that no matter how deep the betrayal, you can rise. And when you rise high enough, even the people who tried to break you will have no choice but to look up.